Good morning, good afternoon. I'm Jorge Camargo. I'm the Vice President of the Board of Trustees of CEBRI, the Brazilian Center of International Relations. And it's my pleasure to welcome you all to this webinar on ports as energy hubs, organized by CEBRI in partnership with the Netherlands General Consulate in Rio. And take this opportunity to do a special welcome to Mrs. Sarah Cohen, which is the General Counsel of the Netherlands in Rio. And I'd like to take this opportunity, Sarah, to once again to acknowledge how much we in CEBRI value this long and productive partnership that we have with the General Consulate here in Rio. So, CEBRI, as many of you know, is a think tank that, as our name suggests, the Brazilian Center of International Relations, has as its main purpose to the Brazilian insertion in the international arena. So we in CEBRI, we want to connect Brazil internationally. So that's also what ports do. And now, in addition to connecting and hosting many industries, ports are also playing a leadership role in the energy transition. Ports are a key infrastructure for oil and gas, power generation, offshore wind, and also fundamental to the maritime effort to reduce its emissions. The maritime sector emits globally over 1 billion tons of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases. So that's equivalent to the emissions of Germany. Therefore, reducing shipping emissions is crucial to implement the Paris Agreement and to limit global warming. Transitioning to green energy hubs is the ambition of many ports nowadays. This will require intense cooperation and partnerships amongst ports, shipping lines, governance, as well as leadership capacity to understand, drive, and influence a transformational change in the maritime sector. In Brazil, the port of Pecém, supported by the port of Rotterdam, and also the port of Açu, and by the way, I'd like to welcome Mr. Eduardo Cantes, which is also present here as director of the port of Açu. So these two ports are good examples of ports that are positioning themselves as energy hubs, contributing to placing Brazil in a distinctive position in the global decarbonization efforts. So before giving the floor to Sarah, I'd like to thank all participants and offer a very special thanks to the panelists today, who will be properly introduced by Rafaela Guedes, our brilliant senior fellow of our energy group here in CEBRI, who will also conduct and moderate our event this morning. Sarah, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me here. I recently arrived in Rio, in this beautiful and very different city than any other city in the world. We were talking about it before, and I'm really proud to be here to represent the Netherlands here in Brazil, in Rio. And I wanted also to share with you why I feel this is also so important that we talk about new forms of an energy mix and what role ports can play. I think it connects, at least to me and to my values, and also to the values of the Netherlands, because we are not here only as individuals. We are here also with a responsibility for future generations. In my personal position, that's a son of 15-year-olds, who I hope will be in this world and have many generations to come. And I know that for many of us, these family values are also translating in what we do, and we want to be proud of what we do. So again, I'm really happy to be here and share with you, because I think that we have, as you mentioned, Pecém and other ports are really very important hubs to work with to provide a future dynamics of new energy mixes. And there is a lot of capability, both in Brazil as well as in the Netherlands, where this cooperation can make it even more fruitful. The Netherlands, together with Brazil, is already looking very much toward how we call solving global challenges together, and look for opportunities to co-create, to find, the knowledge from Brazil, the knowledge from the Netherlands, and how that can be interconnected. And indeed, the Port of Passain, together with the Port of Rotterdam, is a wonderful partnership already. The Netherlands in general is a very strong entry point already as an energy supply into the European market. So that's not only the Netherlands itself, but we are in a very strong position as ports, as a country, to have the connection to the market, not only in a country which uses quite a lot of energy due to, of course, its strong industry, also in the chemical field. So there is a lot of use of energy itself in the Netherlands. But because of, for example, also our very well-developed gas grid already, there is a very possibility for interconnecting that also to further Northern Europe and to the rest of Europe. So we are really well positioned. And why are we? Because of our position and because of the expertise that makes it, we have already a lot of industry which can play a role in this possible transformation. There is a knowledge, let's say, in the oil and gas industry, of course, in the past, but also in the present, because we cannot think about something which ends now. It will continue to be needed, but we are looking for new possibilities. But I think the Netherlands has a lot of specific expertise, which can indeed be used in different energy lines. And what does this Netherlands as a country or as an industry offer? So there is very much an approach to look at it from different stakeholders, so a multi-stakeholders approach. You might know that one of the brands, let's say, of the Netherlands is also look at the possibilities of quality and reliability. And our industry has indeed high-tech excellence, which can be used in this energy transformation. We have very well-positioned Dutch hydrogen ports, Rotterdam, and I know our port is here, but also other ports in Holland, like Amsterdam, North Sea Post, Eemshaven, are really acknowledged by Europe as hydrogen backbone for further exploration within the European, let's say, demand. The Netherlands government is also stimulating this energy transition. So through investments, grants, and more specifically also research projects, because I'm proud to be here in a research institute as well, because the steps we take, of course, needs to be based on research on what can best work. And there has been quite some investment, and only in the period of 23 to 26, 785 million euros investments are made by the Dutch government in decarbonization of industry, at least in transformation, and to look at the possibilities. Sometimes, as I mentioned before, it's not one thing that happens from one day to the other, but we need to be aware of that. Maybe a little bit on the role of ports. As you mentioned, a port is really where everything, in a sense, comes together. It's an economic hub, and it's needed to building and servicing the offshore wind parks, and it's needed through to put through the energy which might be generated, both maybe potentially here in Brazil, but also in other countries. But ports are also very interesting because it's really a cluster of industries which comes together there and have a possibility to add value in this energy generation process. And of course, it's a gateway to the industrial areas in the hinterland. So I'm very proud of the strong connection between already the Port of Rotterdam and Passain, but I think Monica will go much more into it. And also interested because not only Passain, but this country is very strong in a lot of new forms of energy which we could use in wind, in solar, it has really strong natural conditions to work in these demands worldwide, not only in Brazil, in the Netherlands, but also in other countries, and make use of it for the future generations I mentioned before. Yeah, I have many more things to do, or to do and to share with you, also in terms of examples of projects which are going on. But I would like also to give the floor to other colleagues who are here in the panel. So thank you for your time, and yeah, maybe I go back to you for the next steps in the program.
Thank you very much to Jorge, Sarah, for their initial words. Good morning to our audience, estimated audience that is here with us today, to our dear panelists, which I will present in a moment. So thank you. This has been interesting to hear Jorge and Sarah, because they set the stage of where we are today, climate emergency, everybody looking towards which kind of energy matrix and fuels and will be necessary for our future, for a cleaner, as you said, I loved it, future generations, family values, they are super important, and we will have to see what we want to leave for our future generations. So I would also like to highlight that the war between Russia and Ukraine at the moment, it really puts some strong light and top of the agenda, the energy security. So more than ever, how we are going to guarantee and secure clean forms of energy has gained a momentum, and which leaves us in the perfect moment to discuss what are going to be the role for the ports of the future as energy hubs, as important energy hubs. There is still a lot of challenges towards hydrogen, how we're going to transport this, what is being done. I know that Pessen's been doing a lot, Rotterdam Port, so it's going to be wonderful to listen to all of this today and learn a lot. So saying that, I will start introducing. So we have here online with us today Alessandra Romano Grangeiro, which is an industrial and free trade zone business manager at the Pessen Industrial and Port Complex. Monica Swasson, program manager, hydrogen corridors and new business development portfolio international at the Port of Rotterdam. Flavio, which is here presently with us today, vice president of corporate affairs at Shell. So thank you very much for being with us today. This is the first time that I'm conducting here in CEBRI, part are live, part are hybrid. It's interesting, it's a different dynamics, getting adjusted to it. So Flavio, Alessandra, and Monica. I'll start with Alessandra. Just wanted to, I think it's going to be interesting for our audience to learn a bit more of the background and each institutional's activities. So if you could give us some light on what Pessen and the complex has been doing, please.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thank you so much for this opportunity to talk a little bit about the complex of Pessen. Complex of Pessen is actually an industrial and port complex that consists of port facilities, a very large industrial area with a total of 19,000 hectares, and also a free trade zone, ZPS Ceará. ZPS Ceará, it's the only free trade zone operating in Brazil since 2013. So this week we are celebrating 9 years of operations of our ZPS Ceará. So besides that, Industrial and Port Complex of Pessen, it's a Brazil-Netherlands joint venture company. Our shareholders are the Port of Rotterdam and the government of the state of the Ceará. And Complex of Pessen is the company that manages and operates not only the port, but also the industrial area and the free trade zone, ZPS Ceará, it's a wholly owned subsidiary of Complex of Pessen. So our role is to bring new investments, new industries, new logistics services to be established in our industrial area, in our land, focusing on the integration with the port activities so that we can bring social and economic development to our region. We have a great connectivity to the major road and rail links in the region, and we also offer maritime connectivity, having deep sea shipping services to Europe and North America, and also cabotage services along the Brazilian coast of our country. So we have an offshore port. Our facilities include a dry bulk pier, a liquid bulk pier, and a pier dedicated to containers and break bulk. We also have more than 20 industries already established in our region, and we are looking forward to listen to the other participants of this event. Thank you so much.
Thank you to you, Alessandra. I'll pass it to Monica so that she can explain a bit about Rotterdam Port. Please, Monica.
Thank you, and good to see you all, and thank you so much for making us part of this conversation, all the way from Rotterdam to Brazil, thanks to CEBRI. Most people will have heard about Port of Rotterdam and have some idea of what it is, what it does. Most people know that we are a fairly large port, if you look at like world rankings of port size, but that's not the most important thing to say about Port of Rotterdam. I think it's important to just give you a gist of how we operate in these first 5 minutes. We are not a port that owns its own terminals. We have professional parties operating terminals in our port. That's a big difference. As a port, we really are a port and an industrial zone. And both of these functions we have established in quite a big way, you could say. Yeah? We're a large port, we're also a very large industrial zone. We have 3,000 companies or more operating in our industrial zone. So these companies all require energy, but they also make energy. They do all these things. There's also food, there's containers, there's break bulk, all kinds of stuff going on in our port. But we have two main functions. One is the receiving ships and doing that in a safe and an efficient way, because operating ships costs a lot of money. So any minute we can save for waiting time or handling time, we will. So we spend a lot of money on, for instance, digitization, a lot of attention to digitization we pay, so we can do that efficiently. Maybe you read about the ship that got stuck in the Suez Canal and all the ships that were following that ship and needed to be handled in Port of Rotterdam. We could really only do that with a really strong harbor master function team and a good digitization, because it's so important to know exactly where every ship is, what kind of cargo it has, how big it is, when it needs to be handled, etc. So that's something we really work very hard on. And the other thing we do is we lease out plots of land to companies and parts of quay walls and parts of everything else to companies who want to operate in our port, and our leases tend to go on for 25 to 50 years. And what we do in exchange for them to be in our port and develop their activities, put their factories, put their terminals on our territory, what we do in return is we facilitate them in every possible way. We make sure if they need pipelines, we organize that with them. If they need high voltage electricity connections, we do that. We dredge the port, we maintain the quay walls, we maintain everything that needs to be maintained for them to be able to operate in our port successfully. So what we also do, and that's part of the second function, and that makes us a port development company, is that we ensure that we don't only look at what's happening now, but we also make plans for the future, which they maybe sometimes themselves are not even thinking about, because we add all these activities together and try to find the patterns. We talk to the port community members, and we make sure that we are very proactive in having infrastructure ready before they need it. I think I should stop at this point, but that's mainly what we do. And I'm in the international team and work with other ports a lot. So that's the background for me for this discussion.
Thank you very much, Monica. Flavio, I'll leave it to you now to bring a bit of importance of this logistic for Shell.
No, thank you, Rafaela, Camargo, Sarah, to be here with you, and also my colleagues on the screen here. It's a pleasure for Shell really to join the sessions. Very important element to discuss in terms of reflections on the energy transition, also the energy security. I can tell you that probably these two topics, they are the most urgent and challenge for the industry of the energy at that time. So, and thinking about that, Shell announced last year our revision of the strategy we call Power in Progress Together. And you connect this in mainly three pillars. One is the upstream, transition, and growth. I will touch on some of these elements here in Brazil because it's a global strategy, but certainly we have some reflection here in Brazil. So Shell has been doing business in Brazil for more than 100 years. So we talk about 190 years this year. And next year we will celebrate 110 years in April 13. Upstream is our core business in Brazil, and we still have appetite really to invest much more. You can see a lot of potential in the country. Now we are producing something around 400,000 barrels a day, and pretty very active in some bid rounds and really opportunities that can come from the offers and the bid rounds. So we are the second producer in the country, 12% of the national production coming from the assets that we are doing here in Brazil. We also made a very important decision in 2010, 2011, really to join efforts with Cosan and really to create a JV called Raízen, that we decided to enter in the first generation production of ethanol together with the downstream business. So today we have the second, we are the second in this market. So, and now we are producing something around 2.5 billion liters of the ethanol, very, very competitive. And also we also inaugurated, if I'm not wrong, last year, the second ethanol plant on the second generation. We really believe on technology to develop this business in the country. But for sure, we are moving our portfolio in a way that we can be more cleaner from now to the future, really to achieve the net zero emission 2050. And we have been doing a lot in the renewable space from the last year. So I can give you a few examples here. So one is the decision really to build a power plant in Macaé using the pre-salt gas really to generate electricity for the municipality. So we hope that you have this inauguration next year, probably a Q1 next year. We also decided really to invest in solar business in Brazil. We have a potential of 3 gigawatts to be inaugurated 2024, 2025, depending on the timeline of the project, but is also part of the decision really to move forward. And you can see a lot of opportunities on the wind and also hydrogen. And also to mention that natural-based solution is also a good opportunity really to connect with this agenda. So in offshore wind, we have been doing a lot of business since the last 20 years. So we have now the total global capacity to generate 4.1 gigawatts on this 4.3 gigawatts on offshore wind. And here in Brazil, you submit to IBAMA this year a request really to have a license for 6 areas that could be in a best case scenario if we receive the authorization from IBAMA to generate something around 70 gigawatts in total. Hydrogen is a very important element. Of course, we still have some issues, not only Brazil, around the demand and also the cost associated with hydrogen, but it's something that we're still pursuing. I just mentioned to my colleague here that today we are inaugurating or announcing in São Paulo a very important project under the R&D clause that we invest together with USP and also Raízen in a pilot program that we run. We produce the hydrogen from the ethanol really to run the fleet inside of USP in São Paulo. It's a very important element, etc. You connect with this agenda. And as you know, probably Sarah know that, and my colleague from Rotterdam Port know that Shell just announced the largest renewable hydrogen plant in Europe. So that will take place in Port of Rotterdam. So it's a very important element that we hope that they will start the operation in 2025. etc. This will connect with the agenda with POSEN and also some initiative that we have been doing with the Porto Açu in Brazil that I mentioned in a sequence. So really to complement, we just signed in May a memorandum of understanding with the Porto Açu, really to use the R&D clause under the concession contract, really to run the pilot hydrogen plant in Porto Açu, with the start of capacity maybe in 2025 of 10 megawatts. And this is a kind of initiative that's really important. Maybe I mentioned this in my comments later, that we'll try to test the elements around the logistics and all the elements and fundamentals on this pilot project, really to understand the environment in Brazil and maybe deploy this for different regions, that if it makes sense. But it's a very, very interesting project. We believe that we could achieve maybe 100 megawatts in a total capacity in the future. Only to put in perspective the Port of Rotterdam, the project, they will deliver 200 megawatts. It's not a small project. This project in Porto Açu, that's very important that we are working pretty close in cooperation with them there. So I stop here really to give a flavor of the dimensions of Shell globally and also Shell in Brazil here, what we have been doing.
Thank you so much, Flávio. So many interesting information. I have loads of things here that I pointed down. Thank you very much. Monica, I will pass it to you to a question. What are the main characteristics of, you mentioned when you were explaining that the Rotterdam has this, one of its current roles is to the port development. It's a port development company, so thinking about this future. So what are the characteristics of a port of the future in the context of energy transition? And the main limitations, the main prerequisites, operating, planning, digitalization. If you could give us some flavor and how are you seeing the transformation towards a low carbon economy? Thank you.
Of course, Ella, thank you. Well, for a port of the future, to be a port of the future, it first of all has to be a port of the present and have a very flexible idea of its own functionality. And when I say port, I have to always explain, I'm not talking just about us, I'm talking about 3,000 companies who have to think and move ahead and align with each other to be successful. And often we are the backbone of that alignment. Something I didn't say when I started this session at the beginning was that energy for us currently is a very big part of what we do. Some 13% of the energy that comes into Europe, is used in Europe, comes into Europe via Rotterdam. So that's 13% in a densely populated continent of about 500 million consumers and lots of industrial activities. We reach about 40% of industry, and we're very, very big energy hub for coal, for gas, for LNG, for crude, for all these things, biodiesel, waste, all of these things come into Rotterdam. And if we leave everything as it is, if we had thought like, okay, well, this is what we do, this is how it stays, you can never do that, because you have to be aware that you have to move ahead, as I said in the beginning. In 2013, we had the good fortune to have some people in our port who said, we need to set up a hydrogen team because there's something missing in the energy mix. There's something that will be needed in future. Renewable prices were still quite high, but this person was already realizing that renewables and hydrogen would be linked strongly together. And the other good thing and the good fortune we have that our higher management, our CEO, was very much thinking. He actually came from Shell, our CEO, Mr. Allard Kastelein. He was very much already thinking about this transition as well. And the funny thing is, with people who are a bit ahead of actual developments, people tend to first say, come on, don't do this. We're all going to use oil and gas for the next 100 years. This was the message. This was what we were used to. But they persevered, and we now have a hydrogen team of 50 people, and we do a lot of recycling. We do a lot of bio stuff. We do all kinds of things. And again, when I say we, this is also a matter of port development, where we try to attract customers who did these new things, but where we also really intensely, also with Shell, and Shell are very big in Rotterdam actually, so they're a close connection for a long time already as well. A very traditionally oriented company, you could say, oil and gas, but always also aware of the need for change. And all these companies that are on these plots in our port, if they don't change, in the end, we will get stuck with a port with rusty assets, which people will not want to be in. So everybody in Rotterdam, I think, is very, very much aware always of the continuing conversation on change. We do a lot of clustering in a port where the output of the one activity is the input of the other. So we're in continuous dialogue with what companies are planning to do, what they're doing, but also what they're planning to do. And we try to connect them when we think it's relevant for them to connect. And I think that's what makes us a port of the future now, and maybe has always made us a bit of a port of the future, because we're lucky to have, you know, people who keep thinking ahead in our planning departments, our port development departments, commercially, but also technically. So I think to be a port of the future, first of all, means you are flexible and never satisfied with the current situation if you can still see room for improvement. I think that's what drives us. I think for now, I'll leave it there.
Actually, I'll just push a bit further. If you could tell us the main limitation, you said you put together the hydrogen team, perceiving that it will be necessary in the energy mix. So if you could tell us a bit of I think the audience would like to know, what are you seeing as prerequisites and limitations, or challenges?
Well, our challenge currently, the past 2 years, was finding enough people to do all the work, because the hydrogen economy was suddenly booming. But speaking as a port and a development company, to get everyone moving fast enough and everything moving fast enough. Also, policies in Europe. 2 years ago, we were still making a case, building a case for the necessity of imports of energy, while at first within Europe, the idea was that Europe could become self-sufficient. We think, and we have been sort of confirmed in that line of thinking, that that's not possible, that there will be a trade of hydrogen and hydrogen derivatives worldwide, and that companies that have a lot of potential for renewable will be producing countries, and we will be importing country. We cannot be entirely self-sufficient. We don't have the space, we don't have the electricity. But so the political debate going on while the shop is open and while the shop has to change. So to also work with companies in our ports who maybe 2 years ago weren't thinking about ammonia, and now there's 8 new ammonia terminals announced already, and plans for more for sure, which we don't know of yet, or which we are not allowed to talk about, or which are not final enough to talk about. But ammonia as one of the main carriers, and also when we mention Shell, we really battle to be in projects around the molecule for hydrogen. And as one of the results, we now have going to look at the first liquid import terminal upscaling in the world, which is also something Shell are driving together with Engie and other companies. That also requires new ships to be built, because liquid hydrogen requires very, very low temperatures, minus 253 degrees. It's all very exciting new technology. But to not say stop to that, to just push it and see if we can get it, I think that's really the big challenge. Also, I think really the political environment, where some people are afraid of change, some people want to hang on to what they've got, and also the whole EU discussion, where the different countries have different ideas of what are good permitting requirements, or good safety contours, or good policies around what is green, what is not green, what all these things. We have to keep monitoring everything. So that's a big challenge because there's a lot going on. And we keep having to move with that and try to even also sometimes influence it if we think it's really important that things are done a certain way, because otherwise it won't work. And sometimes we get to say something on it, and we try to be vocal where we think we need to be on behalf of everyone in our port.
Thank you so much, Monica. That was very much enlightening, all these challenges and these use of the liquid terminals with Shell, with Fendi. Wow, lots of things going on. And that leads me to Alessandra to hear a bit about the role of the ports here. How are we seeing it in Brazil? Probably we have different challenges and challenges that match interests. One won't be self-sufficient. Brazil probably will have an excess of energy and we'll love to have different places to put this energy. So let's hear a bit of what you have to say, Alessandra, in terms of these expectations for the coming years. Thank you.
Yeah, the expectations are great. I'm very optimistic. Ports serve as important transportation hubs, that facilitate goods movement. That's very obvious. But ports are also catalysts for the economic development, as they enable trade and support supply chains. And supply chains follows the maritime industry. So ports have a direct impact on economic and social indicators. Ports play a role of utmost importance. Ports act as encouragers, as promoters, as inductors of change, of the development of not only the maritime economy in particular, but also ports have great legitimacy in being inductors of such changes as the energy transition that we are witnessing at this very moment. And I think Brazil has a great opportunity to become a global player in the energy transport chain in the years to come. I'm very optimistic about it. What I think we must have in Brazil is the best business environment as possible, not only to attract and to retain new and international investments, but also to increase the national economy. And that includes digitization of ports, as very well highlighted by Monica.
Thank you very much, Alessandra. Yeah, I was putting this down here, the digitalization, better environment for us to do business and to amplify what Bacen has been doing. Flavio, if you could tell us a bit of what are Shell's expectations, what as a company that will be transporting energy, how are you perceiving this in Brazil, and explore even in Brazil, what are we seeing that we could be doing better and Shell would require to amplify? Thank you.
The experience that Monica mentioned on the port of Rotterdam and the relationship with Shell was a very clear reflection here. Maybe I'll repeat some comments here from my side, but it's not a difference. So when you try to expand your business, including the renewable business, is really, you have to consider the logistics around that. So as well for the oil and gas business for a long period of time, what we have been doing. So several elements that is really important to take in consideration for these reflections. I can touch in some of them. I know that Monica mentioned some, but for example, the logistics around the infrastructure and also the assembly of the equipment. So some ports that have in their areas large storage capacity that allows to store the significant amount of ammonia, green ammonia, certainly will be very important, because ammonia will be the carry of the green hydrogen. So it's really important element to consider in your strategy. Of course, skilled labor availability for contracting, serving sepsis supply network, availability of nearby energy generation that Monica mentioned on that. Of course, access to the connection or possibility to expand the connection to the grid, infrastructure of suppliers. So if you have suppliers around you, and also availability to treat the water for electrolysis, because you demand a lot of water in your process. And also, how can you share how can you use the synergy between the oil and gas business as well with the renewables? So I have seen Porto Açu, we start our ship-to-ship operation in Porto Açu. As well, we are moving on the renewables because you still believe we have a commercial partnership with them. It's a very important element as well with Port of Rotterdam. So it's really important to build this business with the platform that you have there. But what's really important that ports take the proactive stance that Monica mentioned, really to seek projects that foster the development of these chains and also generate these proof points that you can do that, you can do that, you can do that, and put in a position that you'll be able really to be considered as part of the strategy of the energy company. So, and also energy companies certainly can see the hubs and also the ports as the risk for the project that can help us really to move fast on that. And also so to enable the decision really to invest much more on this business. So maybe some elements to help on the reflection. So from the companies in the operational point of view, what do you expect in terms of the strategy and also the elements from the ports and also logistics for the business that we intend to grow? No?
Thank you. And if I could explore this point, you mentioned that in Porto do Açu, you will be launching some new activities. If you could explore a bit of what's coming along.
No, we developed the relationship with Porto Açu because, as I mentioned, so 400,000 barrels a day, we export 100% of that. So it's really important to have the facility to have the ship-to-ship operation, safety conditions, so timely, this kind of thing. And certainly Porto Açu play a very important role because most of the volumes that we export goes to Porto Açu, as well with this commercial and also partnership. You come with this memorandum of understanding really to have the hydrogen pilot plant in Porto Açu, because you can see that all the facilities and the elements, they are there really to be considered really to make this more possible in the future. That's basically the connection between the oil and gas and renewable business, what we have been doing with Porto Açu.
That's perfect, because it leaves us with, and I think that that especially this year, it's more and more clear that it's going to be a transition and not a switch, right? Mm-hmm. So oil and gas will be part, and as it goes on, and then we will start with hydrogen and other forms of clean energy as they mature, gain more competitiveness, technologically speaking. Monica, I did some provocations as towards the limitations, the challenges, and then as I started mentioning when we were opening, the reliability and energy security is really something that is key nowadays and more obvious than ever within Europe. And with this said, what are the main implications of setting this strategy in terms of port infrastructure to guarantee, since Europe probably will not be self-sufficient, how to dynamize to make this challenge more dynamic in terms of helping other countries and guaranteeing this flow within Europe of energy and the energy that will be needed. Thank you.
Well, you know how it is when you're on a plane and they announce how you should wear these oxygen masks. When they come down, first put your own on and then look at the people next to you, maybe your children or anyone. I think it's the same for us. I think we can best help those other countries by first making sure that we're ready to do what we need to do to receive. So that's where it starts. What we did, we have a large industrial zone. We first set up an area where we wanted our own electrolyzer cluster. So to have some start of production close to all the refineries and chemical industries that need it. So there's a little bit of self-sufficiency there to connect that to North Sea wind power, high voltage connections, clean water, exactly what was described by my predecessor in this discussion. And to have all these facilities ready to have production on site. So the first electrolyzer will be indeed the Shell one, 250 megawatts. And then there's also some other companies who have chosen to also settle and set up production there. So BP, Nubian, Air Liquide, Uniper, they're all looking at local production of green hydrogen. So that's one thing. But what we also did, and we actually started that earlier, was to do a carbon capture and storage project for decarbonizing the production of gray hydrogen and other stuff going on in the port to start with. So we were already making the first processes green, and then we add real green, you could say. Huh? But why is that important? Because part of the question, of course, is what is the EU? What's the aim in the EU? What's the effect or the impact of the Ukrainian crisis on all this happening? We were already in 2020 sort of assessing that we would need to be importing 20 million tons of hydrogen. And when I say hydrogen, I also mean methanol or ammonia or LOHCs, anything you could produce with the hydrogen molecule and which would then be a different substance to carry it. Of course, the liquid, but also SAF, sustainable aviation fuels. And you could even look at LNG as a carrier for the future, because we have carbon capture and storage. So you could take the carbon out of anything we receive and put it under, store it to get the hydrogen economy started. Because the biggest problem is, of course, the first movers. If you can't refuel a car because there's no hydrogen refueling station, then you don't want to buy a car. So this all has to be organized with greatest effort. We still think we need 20 million tons. The EU ambition has only grown. It was already quite ambitious also for hydrogen actually, but for instance, with the Renewable Energy Directive we already had 2 years ago was developing into demanding that hydrogen used in factories or processes had to be green for 50%, which is a lot if you think of the very small amount of green hydrogen currently available in the world. It's all still needing to be produced. So this is a big concern of ours. Will production be ready fast enough? Because demand will be ready faster now, because decarbonization has always been an aim, but energy security has also always been another aim. And that has now been, given much higher urgency than the decarbonization as such already had. So energy security now is the big topic. And this pushes everything forward harder and harder, so faster and faster. So we're just really pleased that we're already planning ahead, but we are concerned, can everything in this whole new economy move fast enough to meet demand?
Always the biggest challenge when planning of looking at the current moment and the future and having this done at the same time.
Yeah.
So then I will ask Alessandra to tell us a bit about within the port complex in Pecém, how is it structuring itself? And here in Pecém, I know that there's a lot of buzz of linking the offshore wind with the production of green hydrogen. We have been receiving some questions about that. So if you could give us some lights of what's happening and how is this moving forward? Thank you.
Yes, my pleasure. So in February of 2021, still under a pandemic situation, the state of Ceará was bold enough to launch the ambition of the Green Hydrogen Hub in the complex of Pecém. So we are located in the northeast of Brazil. We are in the corner of the Atlantic. We have a very good and strategic position with a short distance from us to North America and to Europe, not only by sea, but also by air. But talking about our green hydrogen hub, we have very good natural conditions. We have sun and wind all year long, and this gives a very good condition for the electrolyzers to operate 24 hours, 7 days a week. It's like a perfect match. It's very interesting, the natural conditions of the state of Ceará. When the wind is a little bit stronger, the solar radiation is lower, and the opposite. So that gives the conditions for the producers to operate 24/7. We have here already existing infrastructure of the port facilities. So what we are doing is to provide the greatest green hydrogen appropriate infrastructure already existing here. Our port is offshore. We have 3 piers, 10 berths, 2 bridges, and the port infrastructure is already here. We also have the suited electric network for the electrolyzers plants. We have also the natural gas network that connects the port to the industrial zone. We have large industrial areas available for new plant installations, for new industries, for new electrolyzers plants within the free trade zone. So all electrolyzers plants in the complex of Pecém Green Hydrogen Hub will be established in free trade zone area because at first the green hydrogen is going to be exported to Europe, and free trade zones, the ZPS Ceará offers great tax incentives for investments, for business oriented to exports. So we have the perfect scope to give opportunity for the already established industries in the complex of Pecém region to be future off-takers, future consumers of the green hydrogen that is going to be produced here. And I would also like to highlight that in May of this year, 2022, Complex of Pecém was the only Brazilian company that participated in the biggest hydrogen event in the world, the World Hydrogen Hub, that took place in Rotterdam. And on that occasion, Complex of Pecém was one of the 70 signatories of a letter of commitment delivered to the European Commission by the Port of Rotterdam, with a commitment to deliver 4 million tons of green hydrogen to the European continent in 2030. And Complex of Pecém will deliver 1.3 million tons of green hydrogen to the European continent. So Complex of Pecém, Port of Rotterdam, will be the shortest distance between South America and Europe. We will export the green hydrogen hub, and Port of Rotterdam will receive this green hydrogen. And Port of Rotterdam will play a key role in Europe as a distributor of the green hydrogen in the continent. So to sum up, we have the great natural conditions. We already have existing port infrastructure. We have land availability. We have the ZPS Ceará, the free trade zone with the tax benefits to make it all happen. We already have a pre-contract signed with Fortescue Industries. Fortescue Industries is the first company that signed a pre-contract with us, showing to the market that it's going to happen. And also, we will have the first molecule of green hydrogen produced in Brazil in Complex of Pecém. EDP has a pilot project to produce green hydrogen, and we are going to have this first molecule produced here in our Complex of Pecém. So we are very optimistic about it, and we are working very hard to make it happen. And spoiler alert, We are going to announce soon. We hope to announce very soon new assignments of not only memorandums of understanding, but also new pre-contracts. We are working very hard to do that.
Thank you so much. We had lots of new informations here and alerts and everything. Well, we're running out of time. I'll go to Flávio, and then for our final remarks from Sarah and Jorge. Flávio, hearing everything that's happening, what are your perspectives? And here with the low carbon energy, such as offshore wind and green hydrogen for Brazil, is Shell looking into that as well?
No, yeah, we are looking really very active on these business opportunities, as I mentioned to you, on the offshore wind and also hydrogen. We hope that the regulation here in Brazil be set really to attract investment. So we are following pretty close the conversations in Brasilia, the lower house and Senate. So that's very important to create a minimum regulation or stability that the investors can allocate the money here. But solar is a reality for us already. Offshore wind, as I mentioned to you, so we are really prospecting that. In hydrogen, we expect that it will go much faster on this space. And only to complement this, I can see the ports, they are the partnership of the energy company, Norway, as mentioned by Monica and also Alexandra. So we have to work together in the early stage, really to identify the bottlenecks, the issues around the project in a way that we can collaborate, work together, and really to find the solution. So we can see that the ports will play a very important role in this space, really to enable these investments in the renewable business in Brazil. So happy to be part of this conversation here with Porto Rotterdam, Porto Açu, and I hope that with Portos and we will have much more to do together in the near future.
Thank you very much. Sarah, I'll leave you with the final words for our final minutes, and then Jorge, please.
Okay. I think what connected very well to me, and I thought it was very interesting from the point of view of the ports, is the need, like I think Monica was saying, to also make sure the infrastructure is right. You use the metaphor of the mask from the plane, and those things also already connect very well to people to remember. So you need to have the correct infrastructure and a good foundation to make this possible. And in a sense, the awful situation which is going on with the war in Ukraine puts more pressure even on the search of this good infrastructure for this new energy mix. It's awful that that's the basis of it, but I think it can be a catalysator to really bring this change quicker. And it makes really a demand from all of us to be ready for the future. So a good presence and a good present situation, but indeed having an ambition and a vision of what we need in the future and what we can do now. The important thing is that it's very now it's a very fertile ground to make these investments and to be to look ahead and to really look for this possible changes. Of course, we are running out of time, but I just wanted to share with you once more that the Netherlands has a very strong industry already working in this applied hydrogen projects in the Netherlands and abroad. And I could share a lot of examples with you, but I think what we have done also as a government together with the industry is work on a publication, which I know it's the link is also shared with you in the chats of this event, which already gives you a good perspective on what all is going on and what could be potential companies supporting, in a sense, this co-creation between Brazil and the Netherlands on also the production side here, because a lot of the knowledge which is, let's say, potentially used in the, let's say, the more fossil industry is very much available and possible to be used also in search for this new energy mix. So my call for action for you is that we are there with a strong team of experts at our consulate. We are there for you. And I would really recommend that you just take a look of this very beautiful, but also very easy to find publication with I hope entry points for you to stick to and to make use for this future also.
Thank you so much. A lot to be learned and a lot of exchange to happen, right? Many things happening. Jorge, please, your final considerations as well.
As you have seen, the key theme that was behind all the contributions here today was this energy transition. This energy transition that the globe is going through, have to go through. We have no other option. We have to deliver on that transition. It's a huge challenge. It's not something that's going to be done by individual companies, individual governments. It will be done together. We have to reduce 51 gigatons of CO2 to zero by 2050, which is tomorrow, in a world that depends on 80% on fossil fuels. So it's something that is huge, and it has to be done by one generation, basically. We don't have time. It has to be done fast, you know. So that's I very much support Sarah's call for action, because that's what we need. And I think what we had today here is an example of this in action. So you have a word from the government seeing that what's the way forward. Ports, which will be a key infrastructure, as I think we're more convinced than ever that the port will play a key role in this energy transition. A port that has a long history, one of the largest ports in the world, the most successful tradition and history in the world, which is the Rotterdam port, together with PECEM, which is a new investment coming from a younger country like Brazil, an energy company like Shell, that all having, let's say, different, strategies, but sharing this vision of the world transitioning towards a decarbonized economy, and this transition being done by a cooperation of all these stakeholders in that transition. So I think we had a very interesting discussion here on how we can do it. And that's what we do in CEBRI, like Rafaela. We have this vision for Brazil as an energy and environment power, superpower, I think. We like to think like that way. And energy and environment is undissociable. They have to go together. You can talk about environment by itself, but you cannot talk about energy without talking about environment. It's something that has to go together. Otherwise, you are missing the point, you know. So we have this vision in CEBRI, and we want really to promote this type of discussions that I hope, and I'm convinced that all the participants get an example of how we can do this in Portos. We have an excellent example today. And I'd like for this matter to thank you very much, our excellent panelists today that have shared their views and their enthusiasm by the future. That's one thing that we have to share, to see the energy transition not only as a challenge, but as a huge opportunity for countries like Brazil, for countries like the Netherlands, for Shell, for PECEM, for Rotterdam, because we are moving to a new world, and with full of opportunities for us to explore and exploring together. So, Rafaela, thank you very much. You did a very good job moderating this panel. To thank Monica, Alessandra, Flavio for their contribution, and we are very happy and proud to have been able to organize together with the Consulate of the Netherlands in Rio. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jorge. I see we have just a little bit more minutes to pass through each of the panelists so they can do their final considerations. And Alessandra, on yours, there are so many questions here, but I'll ask two so that you can put on your final considerations as well. That is, everybody's anxious here in Brazil to know, look, when are we going to have like the first production of green hydrogen? How many MOUs have been signed? So there's a lot of buzz of when is Brazil going to be able to start exporting? So in your final words, if you can give us a bit of light in terms of that. Monica, as well, as if you could tell as well, when is CCS coming along and being able to bring more clean energy into Europe? And for Flavio, they were here. Are you only thinking, let me see exactly what they were questioning here, because there's a lot. Hydrogen could be the solution for maritime fuels. Is Shell looking at that as well? So just some questions. So I'll start with Alessandra, then Monica, then Flavio. Thank you.
Okay, my pleasure. Rafael, I'm sure that Rio is still beautiful. I haven't been to Rio since this whole pandemic situation. Ceará is also beautiful, and I would like to invite you all to come to Complex of Pecém, to visit us, to see, to live this experience of what we are doing here. On behalf of all of us, I invite you to come here, Rafaela, Jorge, Sara, and Flavio. So yes, we expect to have the first green hydrogen production here between 2025 to 2027. As I mentioned before, we have a pilot project from EDP company that is expected to produce the first molecule between this window, this period of time. Complex of Pecém is not going to be part of the operation of the electrolyzers operations. That belongs to the companies that we are in the talks since last year. So we have around 10 MOUs signed. We are in the talks with around 10 companies, and we are evolving to the next phase of the signing of pre-contracts. So I already mentioned Fortescue Industries, and we are in the talks with ENGIE, AES Brasil, Casa dos Ventos, CARE, and among others. And the Association of Green Hydrogen and Offshore Wind is because in order to have green hydrogen, you have to have a renewable source of energy. And the offshore, the wind energy, the offshore wind energy will come in this way as being a source of renewable energy so that we can have green hydrogen. Thank you so much, Rafaela and Jorge and Sara, Monica and Flavio.
Thank you very much. Monica, please.
Oh, what could I add to this? Alessandra, thank you for being so incredibly representing so well Port of Pecém, because I had the good luck to visit you earlier the first week of August. For the first time, actually, my team has been working with Pecém team for a long time, and finally I got to see it for real. I would like to add a little bit to what Alessandra said, even if it's almost impossible to add more, but I would like to add my compliments to Pecém, because I really do take my hat off to them. 2.5 years ago, we were first just talking about hydrogen. Remember, Alessandra? It was like, hydrogen, this is new. We need to do something with it. We have these renewables, and from there on, the network of commercial contacts, we at Port of Rotterdam, of course, we are always seen as an example of forward thinking and the transition and everything. But to think of Port of Pecém going from 0 to 19 clients or something like that in their industrial zone, and anything and everything being green. So huge names are settling in Pecém, and the 4 million tons we need in 2030 in Rotterdam to be supplied for such a large, potentially to such a large extent by Pecém, I think I can only express my admiration for that. So, and that's just what I want to say to my colleagues in our sister port. And please take that compliment home, because it's really well deserved. It's really impressive. They're an example of how you should try to scale up as fast as you can, because this is what we need for the huge demand that's still not being met. We need bigger, faster execution.
Great to hear that, right, Alessandra? Things happening, things going concrete. That's great. Flavio. Yeah.
Thank you. No, answer the questions that come regarding the hydrogen for maritime. So certainly hydrogen is the most promising solution for this kind of difficult to decarbonize sectors, so such as cargo transportation, refineries, fertilizers producing, and so on. So certainly this is a good option. So no, final words. So I was really happy and very energized after this session here. So a lot of ideas, so really very good conversation, very important. I hope that you can help to bring this topic in terms of reflections and decisions for some policymakers. So it's really important. No, as Camargo mentioned, so huge challenge, energy transition, energy security, but I consider also huge opportunities for Brazil. That's by sometime my difficulty, because you can see here in Brazil a lot of opportunities. So it's a matter of time. It's a matter of how fast we would like to go on this way. But we have too many options. That's sometimes my frustration here. That also Brazil have to go really fast on this journey, because we have a lot of opportunities.
Much for everybody that was with us today. I think we had a great audience. Thank you so much. And let's do more of these conversations, right, Jorge? And go into these themes. There are so many things, and it's inspiring to see that things are coming along. They may take a while, but now they're really fast. I'm happy to know 25, 27, it's just like tomorrow. Thank you to everybody. Have a great evening, morning. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.